Go ahead and take a look at the device you're watching this on right now. Your phone, your tablet, your computer. It's a little window to our entire world, isn't it? Now just imagine. In a single instant, it becomes nothing more than a dead piece of glass and metal. Totally inert. Useless. And look, this isn't some far-off sci-fi plot. It's the very first, and honestly, the gentlest consequence of the sun deciding to turn against us, erasing the invisible force that powers our entire modern life. So let's dive into what that would actually look like.
Yeah, and we're not talking about a temporary blackout here. This whole explainer, which is based on a simulation that is terrifyingly plausible, it's not about waiting for the power to come back on. It's about what happens when the very idea of a power grid is physically and permanently wiped off the face of the planet. What happens when the world goes dark and stays that way? You see, the trigger for this whole collapse isn't some kind of weapon. It's the star that gives us life. Deep inside the sun's corona, magnetic field lines are twisting and straining until, finally, they just snap, launching a colossal burst of superheated plasma aimed right at Earth. And this isn't just any old solar storm, no. This is an event that would make the legendary Carrington event of 1859, a storm that literally set telegraph offices on fire, look like a gentle summer shower.
Normally, the solar wind is just that, a wind. It kind of drifts over, takes a few days to get here. But this, look at the difference in speed here. This is not a wind. This is a plasma cannonball, fired at a velocity so extreme it's going to cross 150 million kilometers in just a handful of hours. There is basically zero time to prepare for what's about to hit us.
When the storm finally hits, you don't hear a thing. It's completely silent. An invisible collision. Earth's magnetic shield, our magnetosphere, it just buckles under this immense pressure. And that allows a torrent of high-energy particles to pour directly into our upper atmosphere. The air itself is about to catch fire. So this massive flood of energy triggers something called joule heating. The best way to think about it is like rubbing your hands together to get warm, but instead of your hands, it's trillions and trillions of solar particles all slamming into our atmosphere at once, heating it up like the glowing wire inside a toaster. The air density way up where our satellites orbit, it suddenly increases 50-fold. The planet's atmosphere is desperately trying to absorb this blow, but the side effects, they're catastrophic. Over 2,500 degrees Celsius. Let that sink in for a second. That's a temperature that turns the super thin air hundreds of kilometers above us into a blast furnace. It doesn't just get warm, it expands violently outwards like a giant, silent explosion into space. For the 10,000 or so satellites in low Earth orbit, this atmospheric expansion is, well, it's a death sentence. The almost perfect vacuum they're used to suddenly becomes as thick as soup. And for something moving at over 7 kilometers a second, that creates catastrophic drag. It's like hitting an invisible brick wall. They are literally being dragged out of the sky. And while the heavens are literally falling, the real threat finally makes its way down to the ground. The storm's magnetic chaos creates these massive, unseen currents in the Earth itself. These things are called geomagnetically induced currents, and they're basically silent assassins, flowing through the easiest path they can find, our global power grid. Okay, so high-voltage transformers. These are the huge, concrete-sized workhorses of our grid. They're built for the alternating current of our system, but this solar storm injects raw, direct current, and that just pushes their magnetic cores into complete saturation. In minutes, they overheat violently. The thousands of liters of oil inside them don't just boil, they flash vaporize into an explosive gas, spiking the internal pressure to 10 times what the tank can handle. The result is a detonation. Now, this isn't just one failure. What you're looking at here represents the simultaneous fiery explosion of tens of thousands of the most critical, most difficult to replace parts of our global electrical system. This isn't a blackout that you can fix. This is the permanent, physical destruction of the grid itself. You know, we think a blackout means no lights, no internet, but the simulation this is all based on reveals a far more primal threat. The true horror of a total grid collapse isn't the dark, it's the silence of the pumps. It is the end of our ability to move water. This is the countdown to a biological catastrophe. Within just a few hours, the digital brains of the water system go dark. After 2 days, anyone living on a hill or in a high-rise building starts to notice the pressure is gone. The gravity-fed tanks are empty. By day 3, the constant hum of backup generators at pumping stations finally goes silent. They're out of fuel. And then, at about 113 hours, that's less than 5 days in, the taps in every home in every city on Earth run dry. For good. With no water pressure pushing fresh water forward,
There's nothing to push sewage away. Wastewater systems just fail. Raw sewage backs up, overflowing into streets and even into homes. This is how our modern megacities, these absolute marvels of engineering, revert to the biological conditions of the 14th century. Waterborne diseases like cholera and typhoid, things we thought we conquered, they come back with a vengeance.
And just when you think it can't get any worse, as humanity is plunged into this unprecedented biological crisis on the ground, the solar storm's assault from above reaches its terrifying climax. The invisible electromagnetic fury now becomes raw, kinetic, and geological violence. Remember those falling satellites? As nearly 4,000 metric tons of orbital debris burns up in the atmosphere, the kinetic energy released is just staggering. It's greater than the atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki. But this blast doesn't hit just one city. It turns the entire night sky into a burning canopy of vaporized metal. Okay, now here's where the simulation takes a truly frightening turn, based on some pretty cutting-edge theory. The supercharged atmosphere starts acting like one plate of a giant capacitor, and the stressed-out fault line deep in the Earth's crust acts as the other plate. The planet itself becomes a giant circuit, and a switch is about to be flipped. This process could apply immense electrostatic pressure to faults that are already on the absolute verge of slipping. It could be the final nudge, a global trigger for synchronized, massive earthquakes. And if these quakes happen under the ocean, they're going to generate mega tsunamis that race toward coastlines where every single warning system is completely dead. So, if any pockets of humanity actually survive this onslaught, they will wake up to a planet that has been fundamentally and permanently changed. This isn't about recovery. It's about accepting that you live in a new, hostile world. 4 milliseconds. I know, it sounds like absolutely nothing, right? But to permanently change the rotation of an entire planet, even by that tiny amount, requires an unimaginable force. The storm's magnetic drag reaches deep into the Earth's molten core, literally putting the brakes on us, slowing us down. A fundamental constant of our world, rewritten by the sun. And here is the absolute cruelest paradox. With all of our polluting industries instantly shut down, the atmosphere clears. But that pollution, the aerosols, it was acting like a kind of reflective shield, masking the true extent of global warming. Once that's gone, the planet's temperature spikes by over 1 degree Celsius in just a matter of weeks, triggering extreme heat waves, just as humanity has lost all ability to pump water for farming. That burning satellite debris, it doesn't just disappear. The incinerated aluminum creates hundreds of tons of aluminum oxide particles up in the stratosphere. That's a 646% increase over normal levels. And these particles are devastatingly effective at destroying the ozone layer. Any survivors will face not only extreme heat, but also lethal levels of unfiltered ultraviolet radiation. Which brings us to the final human tragedy of it all. Imagine a year has passed. A community somehow manages to build a new generator. They string up new wires, but who knows how to safely connect it to a wider network? Who even remembers how to balance the delicate frequencies of a high-voltage grid? The people who hold this knowledge, they're a tiny, specialized, and aging group of people. A year of total collapse, of famine, disease, and violence would mean their extinction. The highly specialized, institutional knowledge of how to operate our world would be lost forever. It's not written down in some book you can find in a library. It lived inside of them. And that, right there, is the final, chilling checkmate. It's not the hardware that becomes the problem. It's the loss of the human software. We are left with the ghost of a civilization we built but can no longer comprehend, forcing us to ask the ultimate question. How do you rebuild a world you no longer remember how to run?